Welcome back everyone, Pal Ponder on Weather here. In this video, we're going to update you on the status of El Nino, plus the forest fires up there in Canada and the severe storms that'll be coming in the days ahead, as well as the heat that will be building into next week. So let's take a look at the latest update from the Enzo Outlook, and we have now officially reached El Nino status. They have declared an El Nino advisory, and you can actually see the update. This area shaded in red depicts that strong El Nino. Anywhere from like a 50% probability. It is weak currently right now, but it could actually become a strong El Nino by the time we get in towards November. And look at the probability of Enzo neutral. That's where we've actually been the last couple of months. And we have been in a La Nina forever, and now there's a 0% chance that a La Nina will be coming back. So now that we're in El Nino, we're probably going to be here for the next at least likely 12 to 18 months in the months ahead. So let's break down the details for you and take a look at what that actually means kind of going forward. And we've actually already kind of seen this overall setup already kind of evolve over the last month or two, with the well above average temperature anomalies coming in from the Northwest Territories along into the Pacific Northwest into our north central states, and then the drying out across the Midwest regions, and then the southern branch becomes more active, becomes more unsettled. You tend to be a lot wetter down here in these regions, and that's kind of exactly what we've seen over the last month or two. If we break this thing down for you just on the overall temperature anomalies, it's already looking like kind of an El Nino, right? Just in the last 30 days, we had the well above average temperatures up there in the Northwest Territories, the Pacific Northwest, North Central Canada, up here in the North Central US. And then further south, we had the southern branch that has been more or less on the cooler side, and if not just average side, with a little bit more unsettled weather conditions. So let's break down the satellite picture, because this is actually pretty interesting this morning. We've got all the forest fires up there in Canada. In fact, there's right now 245 fires, folks. Trust me, they are working on it. But just on Quebec alone, there's a lot of them, and we're getting that downwind. And you can actually see this is smoke, guys. This is all smoke up here into the Northeast. They've had just treacherous, poor air quality. It's even dangerous to kind of be outside up there in that region, especially yesterday. I was seeing some of those pictures coming out of New York City. It had basically the worst air of any major city in the world. Just incredible how hazy and smoky that region has become. And then you can actually see this backdoor trough. This is the leading edge. So that's the complements. It had this counterclockwise flow dragging down all that, down that smoke and haze, but also brought the cooler conditions with that backdoor trough. And that kind of put on the brakes towards areas into Arkansas. But further south, you can actually see where the northwest flow is. With the lift up off the subtropical jet, you have instability coming over the top across Idaho into Montana, travels down the northwest flow, and then we have more unsettled weather down here in central Texas, where they do have flare up thunderstorms going into uncapped variety. So it doesn't take much to kind of overturn that atmosphere down there into the south. But you can see where the smoke is, guys. I mean, this is very dangerous, and it's going to be with us probably at least through tomorrow. And I think once that backdoor trough puts on the brakes and kind of retreats further north, the winds actually turn around, and that'll eventually kind of break up this haze and smoke, at least for a little bit. But you know, hopefully they keep on working on the fires and get them under control. But definitely we're going to be seeing major improvements in the haze and smoke, at least once we get past Friday, especially into this weekend. I see plenty of improvements on the table. But further south, where they do have that blow up in convection this afternoon, in fact, they just issued a severe thunderstorm watch until 7 o'clock. And some of these areas could be some big time hail producers. We're talking some up to golf ball size, maybe even up to tennis ball size at the highest potential if you live down there in central Texas, places like into the Austin region. places in like into San Marcos, into San Antonio. Be on high alert for a little isolated discrete supercells. Could be some frequent lightning with these, some upwards to 65-mile-per-hour wind gust, and yes, scattered probabilities of the potential to be in very large hail within this region into central Texas. So you can actually see where this backdoor trough is, right? So this is going into tomorrow. This is the cooler air filtering in from New England down to the northwest, down through northeast, and this has been traveling southwestward. So I think it, like I said, it puts on the brakes somewhere around the Arkansas border into East Texas. And then we'll be watching this significant trough that's going to be coming in off the West Coast. And it's got these little fingers, right? It's got these little fingers. These are little short waves out ahead of it. That's the instability that's going to be the culprit to overturn the atmosphere as we get into peak heating. And as we do, those could actually turn severe as well. So we're talking places like in eastern portions of Colorado, getting into eastern portions of Colorado, western Oklahoma, into the Texas Panhandle. Those could light up into the daytime heating aspect of these storms. And then again, travel from the northwest down to the southeast, and typically likely will fade as you get towards the evening time frame, as you lose some of that daytime heating. And then Florida stays in the wet zone with this continued diurnal type heating of the atmosphere, and continues to bubble up those isolated cells in the afternoon. But the breakdown for the rain aspects for the next 48 hours leaves it like this. You've got the subtropical jet moving in off the west coast. You've got the lift over the top of the ridge. So that puts Idaho, that puts portions of Oregon, that puts portions of Washington, back into Montana, especially into play with a very heavy rain. And then they travel from the northwest down to the southeast with these pockets of instability of isolated thunderstorms. Some of those could be on the severe side across the Panhandle in western Oklahoma. And then you have the isolated diurnal type heating of thunderstorms down here into Florida. And then you got the backdoor trough up here in New England that brings some rain showers up there into that region. But here's the main players as we get into Saturday. Like I mentioned, we're going to be having kind of this significant dip in the overall jet stream, and out ahead of it, these are the leading edge of these jet streaks. And as this pulls in and taps to these well above average temperatures down there and down here in Mexico, and that's going to be lifting up from Mexico into Texas with these elevated dew points on the northern periphery. The atmosphere is going to be rotating. We've got a lot of steep lapse rates, and the atmosphere could overturn into peak heating. So we're looking at possibly two complexes, one coming in from Oklahoma and affecting portions of North Texas, the other one impacting West Texas as it forms off the dry line. And those could be congealing into supercell thunderstorms as well, with some big time hell producers. So here's the setup. So we've got the backdoor trough to the north, right? So this one looks to be retreating as it puts on the brakes towards portions of Arkansas. And as it does, that's going to be dragging the cooler anomalies and having this ridge that's over Mexico slowly lift into South Texas by then with those well above average temperature anomalies, and puts more instability into play. You can see the change, right? So after that puts on the brakes, that puts a rapid retreat. So we're looking at a quickly changing over the atmosphere to above average conditions as that backdoor trough looks to retreat, as the main player will be looking out west with that subtropical jet coming in. And then we have these active jet streaks that are going to be coming across. So here's the setup on Saturday afternoon. We got a lot of available potential energy to work with. Over 4,000. That is insanely high. And then especially with those, increased temperatures well into the mid 90s and the dew points into the 70s, folks. This is something that you typically don't see in the month of June. You would see something, with this type of trough coming in out west. Typically, this would be an April type setup, and you would have lower dew points and obviously lower temperatures by then. But it's definitely very concerning with all the heat that's going to be ahead of these storms, and there's plenty of fuel to fuel these things. So we could be looking at large to possibly very large hail within these discrete supercell thunderstorms, and along the Oklahoma City area, down into southern Oklahoma, getting along the Red River into North Texas, and that could go extending into the Waco region. So this whole area is under that hatched risk probability of seeing those isolated supercells to be large, if not very large hail, with all those dynamics into play. And like I mentioned, there's two complexes. One's going to be coming in from Oklahoma, another one's going to be coming in from West Texas, and those are going to be coming together. And this within that area, that's where the most favorite area is to see in some of those very large hailstones. But that is the first day of what's to come with a multi-day severe weather threat because of the heat providing the fuel from it coming in from Mexico, feeding into Texas, and then you've got that low-level jet will be coming in, and then the impulses of these short waves out ahead of it will be causing the atmosphere to turn over, and it's going to be taking its sweet time really all week long. So we're looking at Saturday, we're looking at Sunday, possibly Monday, that extends into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, while the ridge will be building in from the south, fueling these thunderstorms as they will be moving across. So definitely, you know, some high impact days and multiple days of severe weather that we have to be concerned about and be fine tuning. But here's the setup going into Monday, right? So here's the ridge of high pressure further south into Mexico that lifts in from South Texas that eventually will be overtaking all of Texas. But look at that, guys. That's that significant trough coming in from Ohio. Yeah, these are areas that have been bone dry, right? I mean, really bone dry in these regions. But along with the progressive front, meaning fairly fast moving, we're going to be spinning up a little bit of an area of low pressure. And with that, that's going to be taking its sweet time. And when it does take its sweet time, that's going to be bringing probably the higher probabilities of rain chances, because of that low pressure is just going to be sitting and spinning over these regions. So this is desperately welcome rain across Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, all those regions, portions of Missouri. And then there's the culprit of all this, as this powerful low-level jet will be moving across, and then we got these little pending short waves that are going to be leading the leading edge of these systems. So here's the setup on the surface map for Monday. Very welcome to see green in the map over Illinois, over Missouri, over portions of Kentucky, getting into Indiana, into Ohio. So this is definitely a welcome sign to see that over portions of Michigan by then, with definitely some welcome rain. But look at the heat, folks, is building further south starting on Tuesday, and this is just what's to come. Looks to be a long duration event of very intense heat that's going to be building in from Texas and eventually lifting northbound. So these are the heat indexes. I mean, this is some serious, folks, approaching the 115 range, and even down in Mexico, they could be topping almost 120 degrees, feels like. This is dangerous stuff. This is obviously heat advisory, if not excessive heat advisory criteria by then, especially down there in the Rio Grande Valley region into South Texas. But like I mentioned, that serious heat, 105, 110 plus down in Central Texas, it'll eventually sneak into North Texas. And this again will eventually continue to lift northbound in the days ahead. But between now and then, there ain't much rain to speak of. Like I mentioned, over to the dry slot across the upper Midwest, all the rain showers are going to be complements of that northwest flow. But then once the pattern changes and we mix in with the ridge building in from the south, and we've got that progressive front, and we've got that little low pressure center that will be sitting and spinning over the up Midwest, that's going to be bringing the rain showers with them. This is likely the 12th, 13th, and the 14th time frame. So definitely some welcome rain coming in for that region. But the breakdown looks like this, folks. We've got the main player is the ridge to the south. So we still got that low level jet out here off the West Coast, right? But well above average temperatures further south, and those will be extending northbound. And when that does, that'll shut off the taps for Texas and then lift any precipitation up and over that ridge after we get past the middle of the month. So here's the setup. You've got the ridge of high pressure down here in South Texas that just expands and deepens and extends. It almost parks itself over Austin, Texas for like a week or two, and it really doesn't go anywhere, but just expand. And when it expands, it protrudes outwards and upwards. And that's exactly what it's going to do. And the further north that ridge gets, the further north that rain that puts the rain with these ridge rider type setups starting to take shape as we get after the middle of the month. So here's the setup from the Climate Prediction Center. Yes, they've got moderate risk for excessive heat, likely really from the 13th all the way extending to the 22nd. So this could be a longer duration type heat wave for a good part of the South. And like I mentioned, this will eventually be lifting northward into Missouri, into southern Illinois, encompassing much of the Southeast by then. But what that will do is, again, that will lift the storm threat even further north. So by the time we look at the 500 millibar, by the time we get into, say, the 21st of the month, you can see the dominant ridge further south, right? But look at this. This is some colder air aloft further north. This would be the storm setup and the overturning of the atmosphere, likely with showers and thunderstorms inundating portions of the Dakotas by then, into Minnesota and back into Wisconsin. And then we'll have another setup trailing behind this one, building from the northwest, traveling southeast. And this will be the main driving force for the storm development after we get in towards the third week of June. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update while I protect you before and after the storm.